There are a number of reasons that when I took over as the Minister for Skills Development and Vocational Training, that I continuously emphasized on investing in improving the skills, not only in the vocational area but also the soft skills, including English, so that we would be able to put in place a comprehensive strategy to increase the employability of our future generation. One reason, of course, was that when we look at our labor market, we see that the bulk of the employment opportunities remain and will be in the future in the hands of the private sector. Successive governments in our country have identified the private sector as the main engine of growth. It was so in the last government, it is so in the present government, and I have no doubt it will be so in the future. The labor market consists today of approximately 85% employees in the private sector and only about 15% in the state sector. I believe with this commitment of the private sector being the major engine of growth, the main engine of growth, that government will get smaller and the private sector will expand even further. So this is one of the main reasons why we felt that to increase the employability of the younger generation joining the labor market, that English communication skill should be disseminated at the highest level. Private sector demands this skill not only to offer employment opportunities, but to ensure that they would be able to progress within the private sector as far as their career development is concerned. So we need to cater to this demand, and this is one of the main reasons why we felt that given the low priority given to English communication skill development, that we should emphasize more and more on this very useful tool to ensure higher employability to the youth of this country. Another reason why I felt that English communication skill development is so important is to break down the barriers that exist in our society. We often hear about new money and old money. We often hear about haves and have-nots. We often hear about the rich and the poor. And unfortunately, the bulk of the population in our country live and will remain in the rural areas, living on a low production and a high propensity to consume with little or no savings. This is what we have seen in the past, and this is what we will see in the future unless we invest in the future generation who live in the rural areas in our country. As I said earlier, the bulk come from the rural areas, and we see this disparity between rural young people and urban young people who have access to better facilities when it comes to education, especially to be able to learn and communicate in English. I can remember not very long ago, we had a huge challenge in finding employment opportunities for the graduates of our country. For many years, there wasn't a proper national policy put in place to ensure graduate employment opportunities being created and given to or making it available to the graduates of our country. And over the years, the unemployment rate among graduates had increased to, at one point, nearly 50,000. Now, naturally, the politicians, the leaders of our country at that time looked at this issue as a challenge because it was very obvious that it was a time bomb. Sri Lanka has experienced two insurrections in the south, as you will recall, one in 1971 and the other in 1987, 88. Then we also had the issue in the north and the east of the country, where certain groups of people thought that they should fight for a separate state. So we've had this experience of dealing with youth demands, youth enthusiasm, youth ambitions. And the result, of course, has been very negative for the economy of the country. There was a lot of instability as a result of certain youth taking weapons to their hands and saying that we want to topple a legitimate government that was democratically elected, and some in the north saying that we want to dismember the country, we want a separate state. So all this had a very negative impact as far as economic growth and sustainable development was concerned. So we have this experience of having to deal with this kind of issue, and of course youth, all of them don't take up arms without a basis to take up arms. There are some, of course, the leaders who have ideological demands that they put forward and commitments that they have, but by and large the rank and file are conducive to take to arms because of existing social disparities, social injustices. And one of the main reasons for the insurrections in 1971 and 1987 in the south was high unemployment. There was a commission that was appointed during President Premadasa's period to look into why this came about, and the report very clearly points out to lack of opportunities to rural youth, very high rate of unemployment, and social disparities. And one of the triggers for social disparity in this country has been this divide between the rural and the urban centers, where we have consistently invested the bulk of the resources in developing schools in the urban centers as against the schools, the education system in the rural areas, which cater to the bulk of the population in our country. So we have had this kind of issue to learn from, and this is why the president at that time said we can't afford to have this problem. We have to find employment opportunities for the graduates of our country, otherwise they may take to the streets, they may take up arms, they might try to overthrow us. And there was a knee-jerk reaction taken by a decision being arrived at that we must bring all these 50,000 together and give them appointments. Graduates to be given government appointments so that they will have employment. Now, this was a knee-jerk reaction. It was not something that the government could absorb at that time. It resulted in adding to the budget deficit, damaging the economic direction that we had to take. But despite that, because of the political challenge that was seen at that time, this decision was taken, and 50,000 of them were brought to Sugadasa Stadium, and the President and the Cabinet of Ministers sat proudly there, gave their rhetorical speeches about how humane they are, how they saw this issue, and how they wanted to help the unemployed graduates, and appointment letters were handed out to this 50,000. Now, a large part of this 50,000 got English teacher training appointments. Right? I would say bulk of them couldn't communicate in English when they got this English teacher training appointment. Right? So they were packed off to the rural schools, and they were told to teach English to the children who attend these rural schools. There was no assessment done as to the level of their English knowledge, let alone to be teachers teaching English. And so we had a repetition of the scenario where although the graduate employment problem was temporary, looked after, we continued to have this disparity between rural schools, urban schools, and hence the bulk of the younger generation in our country weren't given the opportunity to learn English and break down the social barriers. So these are lessons that we have to learn from, and that's another reason why I felt that it is important that we come with a dynamic strategy to ensure English communication skills dissemination at a fairly good level. And unfortunately, our mandate only can be implemented when we catch those students who drop out of the O-level or exit at the O-level level, and others who exit at the A-level and who don't go to a conventional university. But there is substantial numbers there. A recent survey done by World Bank says there are 370,000 students who exit from O-level and A-level and who do not go to conventional universities. There's only 25,000 whom we can absorb at conventional universities. All the others have to be captured by the institutions that come under our ministry, and of course the private institutions that are in the technology stream. But we still have a deficit of 120,000 that we are not able to capture. So this 120,000 do not have any skills, and their employability level is very much lacking. Plus the 220,000 odd that we have to look at through our educational institutions after they finish the O-level and A-level have not been given the opportunity of being able to learn and be able to speak and communicate in English. So this is a huge challenge, and what we did as an initial step, what we took as an initial step was, after discussing it with Professor Vijay Singha and of course our secretary and our team at the ministry, was that we decided that we should first embark on a teacher training program. I had in the back of my mind this huge numbers of graduates who were given English teacher training appointments, who were still at the level of Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water and so on. Those are the things that were being taught in the rural schools. Since I represent a rural electorate, I have seen firsthand what they teach in the English classes, and the students there just do not have any hope of being able to join the private sector, where the bulk of the jobs are. And what we felt was we should first invest in a teacher training, skills development program. And the first step that we took was to do an assessment. We did an assessment at the Department of Technical Education. I was there myself when the assessment was done. The workshop was conducted by Professor Vijay Singha, and all the English teachers who were part of the Department of Technical Education were brought into one room, and we had the workshop, and we also gave them a test to assess their levels. And I must say, both Professor Vijay Singh and myself, we were pleasantly surprised. They were not, excellent, so to speak, barring a few who were very good. But there was potential in developing their standards, upgrading their skills. And we have now embarked on this program, and there's a lot of enthusiasm that is being displayed by these teachers. They want to learn more, they want to be exposed to new techniques. There's a lot of commitment coming from them, and as a result we are confident that we would be able to have a pool of teachers very soon that can take the message to the rural areas and invest in this NVQ 1, 2 that we want to develop, which would also include English communication skill development. The upgrading of their skills will not stop in the short term. We want to show a commitment of updating their skills continuously, so that we would be able to assess their levels and then develop it further if necessary. And here we want the private sector also to participate in this program. I think it's very important that the teachers are also exposed to new techniques, new technology in the private sector on a continuous basis. So the nexus between the private sector and our employees, the teachers, are going to be improved further so that we can benefit from the knowledge that the private sector has at their disposal. Now, we want to take this strategy further by taking the same steps at the Vocational Training Authority as well as NITA and other institutions, all in all 11 institutions that come under our ministry. But our job would be made much easier if there is a similar commitment shown by the Education Ministry. We can introduce English starting at the primary level. Even in the rural areas, our job will be very much easier. We are now trying to catch young people who exit from rural schools, doing their O-level, failing or passing and not wanting to do A-levels, and others who do A-levels and come out who either fail or they don't have the Z-score to be able to enter conventional university. So we have to really, at times we have seen that we have to start from scratch, because the English that they are taught in these rural schools are just not enough, just not good enough. So I'm happy to place on record that the Prime Minister has also understood this. The Prime Minister, being a former Minister for Education, understands and appreciates the importance of education. He has put in place a cabinet subcommittee bringing together all ministers who are connected to and who have a mandate in this area of education. So we have, I'm a member of that cabinet subcommittee. We have the education minister, we have the higher education minister, And we also have the Minister for Science and Technology as cabinet ministers who sit on this cabinet subcommittee. And then there is an officials committee that meets continuously. So my secretary attends those meetings and coordinates with the secretary of the Ministry of Education, Higher Education, Science and Technology. Then there are very experienced people like Mr. Ken Balendra. He is there bringing in the private sector input into this committee, and Professor Vijay Singh and others are also members of this officials committee. And now we have started coordinating. There was no coordination before. Everyone was doing their own thing. There was no proper direction. The Prime Minister has, set out the direction, and one of the things I'm happy to share with you is that the Prime Minister himself has acknowledged that what is needed is this teacher training development, skills development that has to be embarked on first. So it's not only our ministry that has embarked on this. I understand that the Ministry of Education is in the process of doing that, and other ministries connected to education will also start doing this, and hopefully in the midterm we would be able to be confident in saying that we now have English teachers who can disseminate this English communication skill equally in the urban centers as well as in the rural areas. One of the things I saw in this book launch that Professor Vijay Singh has mentioned is in pursuit of equity and excellence. Finally, what we would like to see is all these social barriers breaking down, the haves and have-nots disappearing, old money, new money not being mentioned, and the unification of the people of this country is possible if they can all be given this English communication skill, knowledge, so that when they go for an interview and sit down, the school tie will not be the criteria, or the English knowledge will not be an issue. Everyone will be able to converse in English and move with this trend of globalization. What we have to bear in mind is that Sri Lanka had to face one of the worst kinds of terrorism any country in the world has ever seen. For 30 years, we had to grapple with one of the worst forms of terrorism that the world has ever seen. And fortunately, we have come out of it. But what has happened in these 30 years is that despite the fact that there was resilience to some extent in the hearts and minds of Sri Lankans and policy makers, other countries which had peace in their countries have been able to invest in education and skills development and innovation, and we now see that distance that was there between Sri Lanka and some of our neighbors and other countries have now disappeared, and some of them even who were behind us in terms of skills development, education and all that have forged ahead, and we have now to catch up. And this is where we need to emphasize more and more, as Professor Lakshman said, not only on consumption but also on innovation. Consuming, memorizing things, reproducing, anyone can do. Right? But we need to use the English communication skill development as a tool to learn mathematics, to learn science, and to go in for innovation. We have to leapfrog. We can't just go on the normal pace. We have to leapfrog to catch up with some of the countries who have had relative peace and stability over these 30 years we didn't have. So there's a lot of work to be done, And Professor Vijay Singh has come out with this first book, which will be used for NVQ1, and he is now working on 2 other books that will be used for NVQ2 and 3 that will be launched very shortly. Professor Vijay Singh is a dedicated professional. Apart from the fact that we are relatives, that doesn't, of course, come into choosing him as the chairman of this apex body of in the technology stream. He is a very knowledgeable person and a very committed person. I know this firsthand because when I was Minister of Disaster Management and Human Rights during the war between 2006 and 2010, the former president handpicked Professor Vijay Singh to be the secretary of this ministry. And prior to that, he was the Secretary General of the Peace Secretariat. So he is a person, an individual, who's committed to the notion of putting in place, contributing whatever we can to make Sri Lanka egalitarian society, and in the process, accepting the fact that Sri Lanka is a multicultural, multilingual, multi-religious community.